This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. It's 4:30 on April 18th. This is a public meeting of the Public Safety Building Committee, and I'd like to open up the meeting. And we have an agenda. First thing is call into order, which I think we've done, and the second item on the agenda is open to the public for any comments. There seem to be no public here. The third item is I'd like to make a confession. When I prepared the agenda, I neglected to add on approval of minutes. I don't know if that's an issue or not. Should we postpone that till next week?
I make a motion that we adjust our agenda.
Motion's been made to adjust the agenda to include
I second that.
minutes. And first and second, any comment?
Can we do that, in your opinion?
Not that I believe, but ask Ed what he thinks. They didn't put on approval, he didn't put on approval of minutes, so there's a motion on the table to adjust the agenda to include that.
Yeah, you can do it under any other business.
Right.
Yeah.
Is where I would do it.
Okay, we'll wait till the end.
Okay.
Well, there's a motion on the table.
Motion on the table is to
Adjust the agenda.
adjust the agenda.
So let's bring this up to the top and be done with it and keep going.
That's first and second. And any other comments?
Yeah, I don't personally believe it's an item that can't wait until the next meeting, so I will vote against it, but that's just my opinion.
I don't see any harm in waiting till next meeting, but
I'm just trying to clear the paperwork.
yeah.
Want to call for a vote?
Call for vote for all in favor of approving the motion. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Did everybody vote?
Nope. Opposed.
You have to ask for opposed.
Are there any opposed? One
Okay.
opposed. And so it
3, 4, 5,
approved
6,
by
7 to 1.
So has everyone had a chance to review the minutes that Cindy sent out? Is
There's
that
two sets. First set is April 10th. And the next set is the very next night, which is the April 11th, the joint meeting with the Select Board.
I move to approve the minutes of April 10th.
Any comments? Motion approved, motion made and seconded. Any
Discussion?
comments?
Yeah.
No comments? All in favor of approving the minutes of April 10th? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
No abstention? The other minutes we have before us are the minutes of April 11th. Any comments?
I move that we approve the minutes of April 11th.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
And one abstention. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is, unfortunately, Christina resigned as vice chair and has submitted a letter of resignation to the select board. I don't think it's been approved yet. But given that fact, I think it's behooved us to elect a new vice chair for the committee.
I think we should table this until the select board votes.
I agree. I don't think it should be, we shouldn't vote on the vice chair until she's
It's
in
been
fact.
official.
Yeah.
She's requested to speak to the select board tonight, I understand.
Okay. So the motion is to
what?
table it?
I don't know, it's under the agenda of the Public Safety Building Committee's recommendation, so I do not know.
What was your question, Don?
About what?
Yeah, what was the topic of her?
I couldn't say.
I couldn't say.
Yeah.
She'll have to say it, that's her say.
I move to table the election of a new vice chair until such time as the select board approves their resignation.
Motion's been made to delay. It's been made and seconded. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, this is going well.
So we need one to go for dinner and...
Well, I was hoping that item regarding vice chair would have passed because I am not, I don't feel appropriate to discuss the next two items on the agenda. I felt my personal opinion was based upon what I experienced or observed at the select board meeting. There were some issues that I felt that the committee may want to discuss and work with, and before our next meeting, hopefully it'll be a more full production on the next meeting. So I put these two items on the agenda to discuss the select board meeting, and then as a result of that, also possibly review our selection process. Given that I have a very strong sense that I should weigh out based upon perceived conflict of interest, I need to have a volunteer to temporarily take over the chairmanship of the committee while these two
I
topics are
move
discussed.
that Rini take over just for the discussion of these two topics.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, but I mentioned that I have to probably leave early.
Good, we'll do it fast.
Okay. All right, so review and evaluate methodology that was used for selection. So one of the tasks of the select board for tonight's meeting was to review I spent a lot of time between over the weekend and today, even though I really wanted to get my bike ready. Instead, I watched endless videos of select board meetings and also public safety building meeting. And so I have a document that I actually took notes on, so if need be, we can do that. But basically, we had a meeting. We debated about whether or not the firms met the basic criteria. I think we decided that 4 of them did. We were waiting to see whether CBA did or didn't. We were concerned about a number of things about the CBA's proposal. So we decided instead to move on to the evaluation criteria or comparative and come back to CBA. When we reviewed the evaluative criteria, we eliminated 2 firms right away. And then we had a lot of discussion about EDM, about the fact that they contract a lot, and the company that they contracted with had a lot of experience in building public safety buildings. We had a debate about what is similar, and then we clarified the RFQ said just greater than 10,000 square feet. There was some concerns by Christina that what they had built was much bigger, closer to 30,000 square feet, but then we realized that it wasn't an exclusion criteria. But nonetheless, we decided to not to remove them also because their score was significantly lower. There were scores in the 30s and there were scores in the 40s. And then we had a lot of discussion about CBA and also HKT, about whether or not we could find forms or not forms, bankruptcy forms, non-collusion forms, workers' comp insurance, professional references, disbarment, all of that. And we went back and forth, had a lot of discussion about this. First of all, I just want to say that it was very chaotic. There were papers all over the place. I think there were copies of papers that didn't have, that wasn't copied. Charlie brought up his phone where we could see John Workman's scores, but for some reason they weren't in the electronic one. There were phones going off. Not everybody's in the video, so I had to replay it a lot of times because there's just a lot of activity going on above and beyond what we were supposed to be doing. But anyway, we ended up coming up with the 2 firms, and there was a lot of back and forth, and I think the decision was made that if we have any questions about the presence of the forms for a CBA, we should go back and make sure that HKT had the correct forms so that we're holding both firms accountable. And I think there were still some questions, and at the end it was decided that Ed Gibson, when he reached out to the firms to do an interview, and there was a motion to approve both of them being interviewed, the top 2 firms, then he would ask specifically about the forms that we weren't sure, because HKT said, I certify that this proposal meets all the requirements was that good enough, or did we have to have the forms? CBA, we said in one section, section 1 didn't have anything, but they had 2 section 2s. So anyway, in the end, Ed ended up checking with them, and they all provided the forms that were required. And then, as we know, during the interview, we did not have any criteria, and I'll say that neither did the senior center either. So then we didn't kind of have any scoring sheets for the interviews. And so anyway, we just, listened to both of the firms and then deliberated at a subsequent meeting. So that's just a quick summary, I think, of, and then you all know that the select board basically, I intentionally held off from saying anything until I gave other select board members a chance to say things, and I think that John Lumbrough was the most vocal in saying that he needed to hear from the people that voted in favor of CBA why they were so overwhelmingly in favor of CBA that they would override a 7-point objective vote. So different people at the select board spoke to that issue, and then the select board decided to review all the videos and the documents and the questions and then decide what to do. So that's a quick summary, I think. Yeah, Charlie.
I didn't have the opportunity to watch the selectmen's meeting, but what I'm hearing is, at this point in time, the select board is going to make the final decision.
I think the select board decided to have everybody review the questions that were asked, the scoring sheets, what was it scored against, and watch the interviews, and then discuss it again tonight.
This committee.
The select board is, decided to watch the video link of the interview, get a copy of all the scoring, get a copy of the questions that were proposed by this committee to the firms, and then it's on the back on the agenda tonight. And I will say, it's after all of the approval, the warrant approval, the capital. Did capital even meet?
No.
Yeah, so I don't know how we're going to approve anything on the articles if capital hasn't even met. So anyway, that's where it stands right now.
So I heard some other things too at the select board meeting, in addition to the disparity in the numbers of the matrix. I heard a concern that while our chair had to recuse himself for potential, looking like there was a conflict of interest, our vice chair, the select board chairperson read our vice chair's letter of resignation, and that the chair of the select board expressed concern that, what's going on here? Why is our vice chair submitting a letter of resignation? And so, I think that it was a fair opportunity for anybody that was present that night who was a member of this committee. We did call a joint meeting to be able to speak. And beyond reading the vote, with the objective vote of what we came up with 6-3, people were able to stand up and give their thoughts, their opinions. And then I will say, Chief Illingsworth said something pretty important to us, and that was we really didn't look objectively to how we determined the final 2 and how we came up with the vote. It was just opinion. Opinion was expressed in our April 10th meeting, and they asked a lot of questions about that. I guess it's not always done with a matrix for when you get down to the final 2. That often it's a discussion, but the fact that there was a 6-3 vote concerned them. And then I heard what Rini just told us, that the select board was all advised to go home and look at the video, at least of the 2 interviews, in order to have a clear understanding of how the 2 firms interviewed. So it was important that we get it right. Everybody agreed with that. Everybody get it right. If we have this kind of roadblock at this point in our process, we need to work together. This committee needs to work together. And so I think that's kind of my summary addition to what Rini just said. Maybe others want to comment too. Chief Workman was there. You were recusing yourself from the discussion, but you can decide whether you want to say anything or not. Don was there. I don't know if you two had a chance to listen to the select board meeting.
It was kind of a tough spot to be. It felt like, I wasn't expecting to have to speak at that meeting.
It was voluntary.
It felt like, you hate to see this turn into another circus.
Yep.
Before it even starts. I wish there was parameters as to how we were supposed to review. I think that, there is some unfair advantage for Kayla and Beanick in the fact that, even in their report, they probably have, 8 different public safety buildings that they've built. A lot of the ones that we've gone to see are built by them.
Yeah.
I think it does weigh into my decision as to which I thought was a firm to go with. My thinking was that, if you've got a company that's built a lot of fire stations, they're going to really take into account as they do the initial designs as to what it takes to do a fire and police stations, what kind of things are going to impact it. And they, HKT, I think they had 3 or 2 in their portfolio.
Don't forget, their basic criteria was that they had to meet that in terms of the number of fire stations or combination of those that they, so they met that, and that's what Chris Fowler
They
reminded
actually
you
did
of
meet
at
it.
the meeting.
I'm not arguing the fact that they didn't meet it, I'm just arguing, I'm just saying that I had a lot more interaction with Kendall and Beanick. I think this whole group did, and maybe we should all recuse ourselves from saying it and using that knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know, because if you're just gonna do it, if we'd gotten criteria that said just do it on how they scored and how they presented, that would have been a different outcome. And I also feel like, I feel it's really unfortunate that the chair at that time, the vice chair, if she felt so strongly she was gonna quit, it's like, oh my gosh, I think all of us were enough on the fence that, I for one want unity. I for one would prefer that this be something that we do together. To sit there, it's turned into a circus, how they're gonna bring her in to say why she's totally disregarded.
I don't think they're bringing her in, John. I think she may choose to speak. No, they haven't asked her to come in.
I don't, honestly, I think either company would be fine. I think we just need a public safety complex, and I don't care where it goes. I want it to be minimal cost, and I want it to be something that the community is behind. And I think that this whole thing feels like it's going in a weird direction, and I just don't know what to do about that, except for to express that.
Can I raise something else that concerns me just a little bit? Because I heard people speak, in support of K.O. and Beanick as being a local firm, as being known, as building fire stations and public safety buildings that were notable, that were excellent. Somehow the whole concept isn't being the architect, it's doing the feasibility study. And I see those, and I know I heard at the meeting before you recused yourself that oftentimes the firm that does the feasibility study isn't the architect. And therefore, I feel like it might be the right firm for the architecture, K.O. and Beanick, because they are local, because they are known, because they are apparently quite good at that. I guess
to me, those aren't the criteria for selecting. That was not put in the RFQ. It did not say you must be local, you must be known, you must, they're very familiar with the community, obviously. They did the study before. So I just think that HKT could not compete with that. And I just think.
And why did we send it out widely? Why didn't we just reject them, as being too far away? Which of course we didn't. We didn't reject any of them as being too far away.
I think they put a good presentation on. I mean, I don't think either one is a bad firm.
Well, I took notes from one of their presentation, and I just wanted to clarify something because they said, this is from their meeting, and I will also read what the notes I took today from watching the CBA one. HKT, their principals, one has been there for 38 years, the other one has been there for 22 years respectively. We work on public safety projects together. We are the ones that work on the project. We are the leaders of this project, and you will never lose sight of us. We are the architects with a capital A. So I was kind of concerned when you got up there at the select board meeting, Chief Workman, and said, I don't even think they're the ones that would actually do the work. So I just want to
HKT.
Yeah, I want to straighten that out because I think that.
I said that?
Yeah. That directly conflicts with what they just said here. This is about getting it right. What will it cost for the town to support this project? They outlined tasks 1 through 7. They were very methodical. They focused on the partnership, us, community, committee. Visioning session is the first step. Then the design team takes over. They work together. And then they mentioned, this is the first time PD and FD would be coming together. The architect would have conversations about what the priority would be for the design and the money. Do you want basic construction versus a more involved building? Collaboration examples, Ashland PD and Fire Department came together for the first time. They had to deal with wetlands, ledge, design priorities. Tisbury, there was a tight budget. They had to have a 5-month turnaround. It was a deep linear site. They had some sustainable features, but we got it done within 5 months so that it could go to town meeting. Salisbury, lots of areas, tomography, 3-story structure, wetlands. We had to fit it in with the other type of buildings for the town. Dispatch, they wanted natural light. They provided 7 cells for the police department due to the seasonal population and problems. Programming is important. There are unique needs in Southampton. They're asking us to evaluate 4 sites, look at the data and analyze zoning, traffic. We don't do cookie cutter projects. I know there's a lot of civic pride. It should reflect your values. The public needs to support the project. We need to identify drivers, chiefs, who doesn't support the project. How do you educate? Make sure you answer every question. That's the important part. Look, lots of marketing opportunities, websites, programs, etc. CBA mentioned that they had built East Hampton, Hampton, New Hampshire, West Boylston, Ashburnham, North Hadley, that they were going back to their station. They talked about the importance of incorporating training into existing spaces and having multi-use spaces. They would do a space needs assessment, staffing a program, staff assessment for the future versus a 1-story building. They would look at publics and demographics, fit the building to the area, schematic designs, wetlands, conservation, egress. And then he went and launched into the site. 210 was the preferred site last time. It was town-owned. There were costs associated. It wasn't a preferred situation. There were wetlands, unsafe site circulation at the time. But at the time, it was the best site. There were historical building issues. They spoke to the Clark Street properties. They went through a feasibility study on all the sites, wetlands, protected habitat. That's what killed one of the sites in Lenox. It was perfect, but it was destroyed because it was identified as a protected habitat. I found that difficult to hear. College Highway was flat, and they looked at it also in 2017. They determined that 3.5 acres was needed, that there was a future roadway to Lynn Drive. The planning board currently has the plans as we described in 2017. I'm glad to see that they kept it the way we had recommended. How do we decide on a site? Emergency response time, population density, near Paisanos, Pomeroy, and then rank them. They were asked about community engagement, and they said they had a call-in program. We have familiarity with your time. They were asked why didn't it work the last time. The last time there were 4 sites. I had asked the committee last time whether or not they had the sites or whether they were given a site. They said they were 4 sites. Some site selection was involved. This time there's more sites to choose from and better sites. But we did not address community support.
Do other people want to speak that voted for CBA? Do you feel, one of the things I heard was just about everybody, and I can't tell you exactly who did or didn't, started their presentation when we discussed the 2 different firms with HKT definitely did a better presentation. I'm sorry, I'm coughing. I wonder if other people want to speak.
If I said, I don't know how, I have to look at the meeting. I certainly didn't mean to say that the HKT wouldn't be the ones to design it. I hope what I meant to say is they might not be the ones to build it. Just because that was something that had been talked about earlier. I certainly think that there's no reason why the people who presented wouldn't be the ones to design it.
Yeah, I was surprised that.
However that came out, I apologize if it came across that way.
If I'm understanding what's going on correctly, at this point in time, we need to see what the select board decides tonight before we know what direction or course we're going.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, we could discuss why we voted, and we could discuss it and discuss it and discuss it for right or wrong. But we could, but I don't see that as doing anything but just burning up time.
Yeah.
Because it's still at this board point, if I'm understanding this correctly, we need to get direction from the select board as to what they're expecting this committee to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, I'll say what I've been wanting to say for a long time. And that is that I worry about community support, because the last time this study was done, money was spent on it, and then the community didn't support it. And I worry that the committee and CVA did not do a good enough job of either designing the site or communicating that to the
I
public.
got my pink slip.
So, and I'm worried that there's been a public safety building committee for 20 years in town, and we don't have a public safety complex. So I'm very concerned about what has been done and not repeating the mistakes of the past. I really honestly do believe that this town wants a public safety complex. I think that they honestly believe that the police and fire departments in this town deserve better working conditions. I think that there's money involved, there's been historical considerations. I mentioned the night of the interviews that that very day, somebody approached me and asked me what was happening with the old town hall. And I said, well, it's still on the list of consideration for the senior center, but it was quickly taken off because it's not even 2 acres. And they were very worried because they think the building is beautiful and they don't want it torn down. And I said, but they did, you know, the historical commission said that they would not step in the way from removing the fire station. And they even spoke up in favor of the fire station. Well, that used to be a school. So I'm just very worried about public perception of, you know, of what we do. They want the station, but I think that there's too many things that might be getting in the way. And, you know, I have been on the select board for 6 years, and I'm just going to state some facts, and that is, I tried really hard this time around for the Public Safety Complex to have people that are not the same committee that we had in the past. I think it was heavily geared towards firefighters. And because it's a building committee, I wanted more building people. So when I spoke up and nominated Mark instead of the 2 people who had been on the committee before, I heard about it. I heard about it, and people told me they weren't happy, especially the people that were not selected. So and then the whole question came up of associate members. So there's a concerted effort to have the people that were on the committee before. And I found how important it was to have engineers and architects on the senior center side that actually can ask the right questions. I think it's unfortunate that we had to put the RFQ out 3 times before knowing that $75,000 wasn't enough. And we keep it coming up against these roadblocks. I've tried really hard to just be neutral about, or objective, about due diligence. Like on the senior center side, there have been sites, we have methodically looked 1 mile in each direction. Where's the centroid? Quarter of a mile in this direction from Route 10. Let's look at all the land, let's narrow it down. We need at least this. You know, and then we had all these people coming up to us and saying, well, can you look at our site on East Street? Can you look at our site on the old Harley Davidson building? Sure we will, sure we will. And then we systematically said no, because there's no access from East Street to the land that borders Conant Park, and it's a violation of Conant Park to put a road through it. Harley Davidson, no, it's way too big and it's already listed for like 2-3 million. So we systematically looked at all of them and then removed it and then came up with a scoring matrix and decided on the site that we did. And so if it had come to a different site, I would have been okay with that because I felt there was due diligence. Every step of the way, it was methodical, it was objective, and even when they wanted to use subjective comments, I said, no, Ron Lauren is on our committee, he used to be the health agent. You know, we're not gonna just go with someone's opinion about the soils, we're gonna go with data about the soils. And so anyway, I think that that made the whole feasibility study much more valid.
For the senior center.
For the senior center. You know, this time, you know, Charlie, you were sitting to my right, so I want you to fill in the blanks. If I'm only stating facts here, that when Charlie and I were both in the senior center, we were in the exact same boat that this committee was at, where we were going out looking for land, and we wrote to landowners, which is why I wanted the letter to go out from the select board, and I wanted it to be a formal thing, none of this behind the scenes chat with people that you know and the builders in town. have it be a formal letter that goes out. And the senior center wasn't happy with that. They wanted to just, talk to the people themselves because they thought it would take too long for the select board to reach out to people. But I felt it was important that the letter go out from the select board because they're the representation of the town, and if we're going to buy land, it has to be the town's okay anyway. So we sent the letters out to the landowners, but the last time around we sent the letter out to the landowners, we had identified a property that we thought was a preferred site for the senior center, but we didn't hear from the landowner, so we ended up authorizing one of the select board members to reach out to the landowner, and then after a period of time, we were informed that he's buying the land. So an ethics violation was filed by some members of the town against this particular select board member. And the select board just received it and just waited to hear the outcome of the ethics thing. And they were concerned about the fact that we weren't offered the right of first refusal. But nothing illegal was done from what, nothing was found, but we're talking about public perception here. And so now we're kind of in the same boat where we're systematically looking at land, and if we end up in the same place, I'm okay with that, but there has to be due diligence. And I just didn't feel that there was due diligence, that I felt like CBA was up there doing a feasibility study in front of our eyes, and my perception is it's not objective, but other people in the committee's perception was they did their homework. And so I think that a lot of it's just a difference in perception, and I'm concerned about the public support, given the history of this committee and the history of this whole thing. Like I said, if there was due diligence done and people were systematically reviewing, I'm worried about the traffic. I mean, it should be, like it's not on Route 10, none of the sites are on Route 10. If I was, coming out, if I lived over there,
You're talking about Zero College Highway.
Yeah, if the proposal right now is to put 40 houses in there, and first of all, people need to ask how much they're going to cost, because I think that's a consideration. But if I was a landowner coming out of the street there and a police or fire vehicle is behind me, I'm going to be concerned. So I think there's a lot, I think due diligence is all I'm asking for, because if the public comes in and they want a question, then we need to be able to answer it. And it's not just like, but I just felt like CBA they were already asked to look, they even admitted that they were asked to look at Zero College Highway back in 2017. And they're the ones that came up with the 3.5 acres needed. And I think that if this particular property is the one that's selected, everyone's talking about, how great it is that it's a donation. We need to clarify, are there any stipulations? What is the stipulation? Are there naming rights that are being asked for? Is there this, is there that? We ended up purchasing LaBrie Field, and we have now spent close to $2 million on that field. And I'm not saying it's not worth it in terms of like what's there. It's a wonderful place where the town is recreating, and now there's going to be a wonderful playground if the town votes to support it in name of the little girl that just died around the first of the year. So I'm just talking about public perception. I'm talking about the history here, and I want a public safety complex as much as everybody, but I want to not have barriers, and I want to be able to be transparent with the public around the decisions that we make, that's all. And I didn't feel that, I think CBA, has a lot of history, and I wasn't impressed with their presentation at all. To be honest with you, I was impressed with the two other people, not the main principal. That's my 2 cents about the process.
The interruptions on the texts I was getting was the engineer to schedule a perk test on Clark Street.
Oh.
So that'll be Friday morning. In case you're curious.
No. I was just saying that I was listening.
No. But I'm talking about that other project, so that you know that that's moving forward with that.
Well, we said we were going to keep it short. It's already a little after 5, and you have to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave at 5:15. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to say. I just wanted to be upfront that this, there are considerations for public support, and so long as it's done objectively, not subjectively, and there's lots of transparency and engaging the public all along the way, I think that's what's going to make it successful, because I think it's much more than 50% are in favor of this, John, I really do. I would love to think that this, yeah, I think the town is totally behind it. It's just that there's just, I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
history here.
Yeah, I'd say matter at hand is really, what do we do? Because, how do we, let this be transparent so that, nobody else quits. And-
Yeah.
And we can move forward with it and do what we need to do, which is really bring it to the people so they
Yeah.
can see what's going on. I might suggest that, really, I think if we had criteria as to how to evaluate,
Yeah.
that might have been helpful, because then we all would have known sort of more expectation.
Yeah.
And for some of us to be thinking, the benefits of seeing their work and seeing that they had 10 sites, and, that did weigh. And if we shouldn't have considered that as heavily, then we shouldn't have considered that so heavily. And I think that, and unfortunately, it's led to division that's now public, and I don't know how to give that the space it needs to let itself work out, except for maybe just let the select board look at it. You've spent a lot of time, I imagine the select board's going to spend some time reviewing it. If they're going to come and give us criteria to look at, then that's fine. If they pick it, that's fine. I mean, honestly, just whatever gets us through what's a bit of a mess by
Yeah.
someone leaving. And honestly, I think we need a well-rounded table. It's too bad that people would leave. I think if that was a factor that was stated in our discussions last meeting, that would have been taken into account, because I think it's a close enough between the participants that it would have influenced. And
Yeah,
if we-
so, I mean,
And if we had had that opportunity before they felt so ostracized that they turned in a letter of resignation.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to it, and even at the select board meeting, there was no reason given,
It's tough.
and so I don't want to presume, and we shouldn't presume.
I don't mean to
The reason
presume, it's
for
just-
it.
I just know it's tough.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we need to just schedule another meeting and see what the select board does this evening.
Okay.
I mean, that's gonna give us direction one way or the other.
Yeah.
And my personal feeling,
Mhm.
I hope the select board just makes a decision either way, just so this keeps going.
Mhm.
I think that if this comes back to this committee, we're gonna be going through weeks of reevaluating,
Mhm.
and we're losing time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that much. Both companies are good.
Now, how about John or Dawn or Mark? Do you want to add anything to the discussion?
Well, I don't know any of this history,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I made my decision not knowing any of the history, not knowing,
yeah,
how involved Caleb was with everything else.
yeah.
I know of Caleb Meanick from other things, not doing business with him, but I just know the name, just
Right.
because we're local.
Yeah,
If I may.
Well, let him finish. Let him-
yeah,
Oh, I thought it was.
And a lot of the reasons that you felt that you didn't care for them were reasons that I thought I liked about them.
Mhm.
And, that was part of my decision, but, I did make the point that I thought HKT were better communicators. And it seems like the men were comfortable with CBA's presentation.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can say this, but the women were not.
Mm,
And if we don't have, if that's, the people in the town are going to be voting, half of them are going to be women, if they're going to alienate half of the people for voting, then maybe HKT would be a better fit.
mm.
After to see Chris and, resign, and to feel that strongly. And I didn't feel the presentation was bad. I
Yeah.
thought HKTs were a little better in how they communicated,
Mhm.
but there was the reasons that I saw that didn't bother me, that they talked about the potential hazards in some of the sites, and I thought that was being,
Proactive.
yeah.
Yeah,
proactive.
yeah, just a different perspective. I mean, I think knowing the history and knowing, it seemed to me like they already decided on the site and such, and I think the public is it was such a stumbling point last time that I would want just due diligence, like don't come up here to interview, to be selected and already come to a conclusion.
Yes.
And to me, it was like, that's not objective, that's, I mean, to me, you haven't even looked at anything.
So that we're gonna make.
I thought it was presumptuous. I wanted them to do that as part of the study and to share that objectively with the committee and not to come to that conclusion while they're interviewing to be the firm. And while some people think it's doing their homework, I think it wasn't appropriate. And the reference, I mean, I know that a lot of builders probably see like toxic waste and wetlands and ledge and invasive species as barriers. But to me, you need to address all of those. We have a whole group of conservationists in this town. We have a whole group of people that are concerned about invasive, environmental issues like wood turtles and whatever else. So I think he was a little dismissive of that, as if it was just a barrier and not a public, like, we need to investigate that and address it, as opposed to, just, it was a little bit of a jaded builder approach to that. And I can tell you right now that there's a lot of people that would have been offended, but I was offended by the reference to that.
When I look at, hear that, it's like, that's different species
Yeah.
that you have to deal with, cost money.
Yeah, right. And that's a,
And it's not that you're not gonna do anything or you're gonna hide it, it's just that,
Right.
and that's more money to the project, and that's how I look at
right. And a lot of people won't look at it quite that way.
it. Right.
Yeah, I get that, I totally do.
And I think that's part of their communication. and,
Right.
But
But you have to be
for
good
me,
at it.
I didn't hear what you heard. I heard
Yeah.
something different.
To me, I think you have to be really good at selling that to the public. Like, we're concerned about this, but so this is what we're gonna do about it,
Right.
as opposed to referring it to it sort of as a barrier
And
exclusively.
Like John was saying, that we just wanted kind of safety building.
Yeah.
And if that's the kind of thing that people would perceive from them communicating, then
You want anything, Don?
Yeah, I would. And this is the way I went into this survey and scored as best I could, using the best judgment that I could. I want to come out of it feeling like comfortable that I made a good decision based on the level of experience in the area. And I do think that is knowing the neighborhood and that sort of thing is not to be ignored as far as. So, am I influenced by Kalo and Phoenix experience? And the answer is yes. I've been on this committee 10 years, and I've been around this sort of thing for 25 or 30 years. And this process that was handed to us left room for personal judgment.
Mhm.
And I would feel right this 5 minutes, I feel more comfortable with the known than I do the unknown.
John, I'm just gonna give the chance for the people that haven't spoke to say something. John, do you want?
Yeah, I don't know, is the select board concerned that we rendered a split decision on this?
I think so.
Okay, so, they could take it two ways. They could say that we're not, a cohesive voice, or they can look at it and say, well, both firms had something to offer. One firm resonated with some of the group, the other firm resonated with other members of the group. There's nothing wrong with that. And if they go ahead and they review their interview, and they decide that HKT is the better candidate, then, I didn't go with them, but I thought their written proposal was stronger, and I scored them that way. I would have no problem, personally, I wouldn't see it as a vote of no confidence if they decided to go with HKT. Because I think like John said, both firms are very capable. I think the problem was, for the written proposals, we had a nice tidy scoring system, and so that narrowed it down to two groups. We didn't have that with this. It was kind of like everybody's personal how did their interview resonate with each one of us? And for me, that swung my allegiance from HKT to CBA. Just something about, I just liked the way they answered the questions. I wasn't happy the way they were dismissive about, some environmental things, but I thought that was just one part of what they said. We're going to be going through a similar process down the road. We selected for feasibility, we're going to be selecting an architect. So maybe next time if we have interviews, then maybe we want a scoring system.
Yeah. We didn't have one for the senior center, just so you know.
Okay.
So it didn't, I wasn't alerted to the fact that we didn't have it. But I think everyone's kind of agreeing that that would have made sense.
The scoring system makes it kind of nice and tidy, okay, they're 18, they're 11, we'll go with 18. But you have to be very careful to weight things properly if you're going to rely on that.
Right, that's a really good point. Right. My sense from the select board was that was concerned that it wasn't unanimous, concerned that they got a letter of resignation from the vice chair right after the decision, and that the score on the objective part of it was 7 points higher than the next one. So and yet they heard that they presented better. So what then accounted for a 7-point shift on the score, almost one full person? That's what I heard. Is that what you heard?
That's what I heard too.
Yeah.
I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's, this has cost a lot of money. I mean, I ended up, I kept putting it on the table. We need more money for the public safety. We only got $50,000, so we encumbered money from ARPA, because that's the most readily available money without a grant or whatever, something like. So for me, am I willing to represent the town in paying $150,000 for a firm that I don't necessarily support? I mean, I don't like making a decision where I don't go with the majority of the hat that I wear, but that was the part. I mean, I'm basically being asked to okay $150,000 of money. That's a lot of money. Right now, we're trying to find money left and right for this FY24 budget. To that was my concern. I don't see how I've been in local buildings that they built. We know them. To me, it's kind of like the old boys network people. They're local, we know them, we work with them, and we've been in the buildings that how could HKT possibly compete with that? They can't. And yet they were the better presenter and they were the better scorer on the exam, on the thing. So to me, I worry about the history. As you know, I have not, Charlie was right there. I mean, there are concerns that were raised. I'm not saying that there was anything that was now done anything wrong in terms of right of first refusal, in terms of any of this. I'm just saying that public opinion, just like you said, public, you don't have a conflict, but the perception is what worries me, because I have people coming up to me all the time and asking about different things, and it's like, no, that's not true. I mean, you're constantly dispelling what people think is happening. And then don't even mention Facebook.
So I want to clarify one thing. As a woman, I didn't even think about the gender. That aspect of it was not important to me. I worked with men all the time professionally in my roles. And so I just want to know, I want to go on record saying I didn't vote for HKT because they were women, and that isn't it at all.
No,
I voted strictly because they presented better and I felt they met the criteria. I too was put off by the fact that their primary principal, Clifton or whatever his name, Curtis, said there's only one location that we can possibly consider, and that was Zero College Highway. He ruled out here. He ruled out Clark Street right there in the presentation. To me, he didn't, why would we pay money for something if he's already concluded where the location was? As well as everything else, as well as the fact they did the study, or apparently did a study in 2015, and it failed. I think the town deserves something different, and I really felt HKT was strong in their presentation, strong in their written presentation. I think it came out that the Seattle Phoenix written presentation was loaded with spelling errors. It looked like it wasn't well, produced. And to me, that was a sign of, we're not going to take this as seriously as we should.
I'd like to clarify something. That
Sure.
I didn't mean to, in case it gets taken out of context.
Good.
I didn't mean to say that you guys voted for them because they were winning.
Okay, good.
I meant that what I was trying to say was that they, Caleb and Beanick, came across the women negatively.
Okay.
Where the other firm
Yeah.
didn't. Not that they were women.
It wasn't a gender issue at all.
It's just that how they communicated to us.
Yeah.
Right.
And how it was perceived
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
by
It is like curious though, I mean, I don't even know what to make of it, that, the men of this committee voted in favor of the presenters were men, and the women of the committee, I feel like I voted based on, and we all voted HKT as the best, by 7 points. So, it's just curious that it ended up the way it is, and I'm not exactly sure what to make of it.
It's
but-
like the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's like the elephant in the room, it's like.
Yeah, I think it had to be stated because it
What does
wasn't all.
this mean? It's
Yeah.
hard to know what it means,
It's
to
too
be honest
small a
with
sample size to draw
you.
this
Right, right.
conclusion.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go so I can at least have supper before I come back again, and hopefully you do the same thing, but,
I have 3:30 lunch, so that'll carry
yeah,
you.
my feeling is like, the select board, I'm curious to see what they say about having reviewed the presentations. I don't know if they're gonna, feel comfortable like overriding. I'll certainly share what was said here tonight. It's just unfortunate, like another barrier in the road, just like the, 3 times posting the RFQ. Like, we have to be committed to continuing to make this happen. That I'm positive of. And I don't know if the committee's gonna feel comfortable going against this committee's vote. I don't, we don't have the money, unfortunately, to just do an independent review. That would be preferred, to just have somebody look at the RFQs and the interviews and do an independent review, but I'll just see where it goes.
Do we want to make another motion, though? Do we want to have Rini or Ed present to the select board that we've done anything differently, or just leave the vote as it was? Now, we don't have everybody here, so I don't know how people feel about that.
I wouldn't make a motion to do
Okay.
anything.
Okay. But what,
Okay.
in terms of presenting tonight, there are people that are saying they could
Yeah.
go either way.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
And I think that we also have to be very aware of what we told these firms in terms of dates. We're already up to, we're talking about next week, there's supposed to be some decision point. So anyway, unless anybody else has anything else they want to say, or if they don't want me to transfer over to the select board, I'll just see what the select board feels like by them reviewing all of this and see what they want to do about it. I understand, a lot of sides of this, and I just think that all of us need to be very committed to keep moving this forward. I do think it's what the community wants. I think it's unfortunate that, Christina resigned, but I wasn't even in the room when that happened, and I haven't heard anything about it other than the letter. So we'll just see what happens tonight, and I think it would be a good idea to have another, meeting on the calendar somewhere. But I'll leave that up to you, and I'll turn it back over to Mark or Cindy or somebody else.
We already have
Just
a
real
meeting
quick, we are
scheduled
scheduled
the
May
1st.
1st. We
Yes.
have another meeting
We do,
already
okay.
scheduled.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's the day before the town meeting, right?
Yeah.
Town meeting second.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, guys that have to do select board. You
Left your coat?
Thanks.
Thank you.
I do one other thing on the agenda under other items. I got an email from Chris Fowles a couple weeks ago. She worked diligently on this one-stop shop for additional funding purposes. She made applications to everybody in the world. She's calling everybody on weekends. We were pulling together a bunch of items for what we submitted. She submitted the application. They came back with comments on it, and part of the comments were ways you can enhance this application. And there's a 30-page application that comes with this. And the town, I forget who the entity in the town, which agrees to help us with doing it. It's due on May 1st.
It's a grants committee.
Grants committee.
Yeah.
This application is due May 1st, I believe. And so wanted to know if we wanted to pursue this application, because we have to fill it out. If we do, I'll be glad to do most of the work, get the thing started, draft forms, send it to the grants committee, run it by the rest of the committee. But just because time is ticking, I wanted to know if we as a committee wanted to pursue this several $1 million worth of money.
Do we have a choice?
Just was wondering.
Yeah, what do you think, guys? I think we should ask
I
for
was just
$7
wondering
million.
if we wanted to go through that process.
I think we have no choice.
I don't see any option here.
Well, Chris specifically said, let's talk about it, and if we want to pursue it, we can, and we can work with the grant committee
It's
to do
due
that.
June 2nd. Did you say May 1st? It's June 2nd, according to
June
what
2nd,
this...
okay, at the end of May, yeah, so, but
Okay.
you know, time ticks between filling out the application, there's a bunch of hints on there. You want to do it to be most competitive to get this grant,
I
so.
move that we pursue this grant.
The motion is made to pursue the grant, do I hear a second?
Second.
The motion moved and second. Is there any comments? No comments heard. All those in favor of moving forward with pursuing this grant, say aye.
Aye.
Aye seems to be unanimous, and we will proceed.
So how many million are you looking at?
It was two different scenarios, and one was $1 million grant, but we had to pay a certain portion of it, so it was
50% probably.
$650,000.
It's a match grant or something?
Yeah, some type of match grant, but there were 3 or 4 different ones that she kept asking me how much to put in money for.
So could we get a grant for architectural design and another
Yes.
one for construction?
Yep, there were for both aspects.
Okay.
But it has to be done by, I don't think it'd be different construction, more for the architectural, because it has to be spent by the end of a certain period of time.
There's a, yeah, just like all grants, they have, they
so
don't say they're
Yeah,
open-ended.
It would pay for the architectural fees,
Yeah.
which I expect to be, you know, over $1 million. So we would be able to use the funds for that purpose. So if we're going to do that, that's good. I don't think any other questions. We
Well,
are.
do you have questions about who wants to help you on this?
I will start it, and
Okay.
again, because Ed's not here, if I fill out drafts, I can send it, I guess, out to everyone.
As long as we answer to you directly
Yeah,
and not as a group.
right, so if I send out a draft, if you send it back to me, I will incorporate your ideas in the next meeting. We'll put I'll modify the agenda for May 1st to discuss the draft form.
Yeah, we just send it out, put it BCC, and that way if somebody hits reply all, it won't go to
Yeah,
the group.
That's a good
Put
idea.
a what on?
If you, when you send it out, put everybody's address in the BCC.
Just send it
Oh,
to
my
yourself.
comments?
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
somebody hits reply all, it still only goes.
Okay,
just
put it in the
you.
VCC, okay.
Put everybody else, put yourself as the recipient.
Recipient.
Everybody else, we don't see who gets it, and if we
Well, they'll give
reply
it-
it all, it wouldn't go to everybody.
Yeah, when you hit reply,
What?
Reply,
You'd be the sender,
all.
Yeah,
not the recipient.
He's the sender and the
Yeah, the
recipient.
recipient.
yeah,
Yeah.
but when you send out as a sender, you're automatically gonna get the call back from the blind copy.
so I'll send it out to me and CC everyone else.
Yep, BC.
BCC.
Blind copy.
Blind copy, yes.
Kind of skimmed through it just quickly. Is it mostly just a matter of checking boxes? And
It is, but if you read the documents, you really want, it's a competitive grant. So the way you word it and how you do it, again, I skimmed through it. I got this thing late this morning and I was doing other
You
things.
may find that the original documents the committee put together, that 2012 report, may have information there that you can bounce back into.
Yeah. I mean,
Also, I have stuff when I used to be the EMD that might be helpful for you for demographic
well,
issues.
you can also put it, fill in the draft, because I sent everyone a copy of the.
I understand. I'm just trying to figure out where in my little life I'm going to be doing all this. You know? I'm sitting here now trying to schedule a perk test for the senior center.
Right now, we have next meeting is scheduled for May 1st. I don't think, unless I'm at a different opinion, we need to schedule beyond that. And if there's no other business,
I moved to adjourn.
I second it.
First and second for adjourn. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
We will see you on the 1st. Thank you for coming.
I will.
Thank you for stepping up
So-
to that grant.
Adjourned at 5:30.
5:31. If that clock is any accurate.
Okay.
You look tired.
I feel really tired.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.